I want to tell you a parable today. A man is driving in our city. He's being tailgated by a person driving a Lexus on his back bumper. They're traveling down a busy boulevard. The light turns yellow, and even though this man could have made it through the intersection, he stops. The person in the car behind, that Lexus driver, goes ballistic, slams the horn, waves their arms, rolls down the window, flies the bird, yelling. In their fury, this angry person does not notice the police officer behind them. The officer pulls them over, arrests them, and hauls this person down to the station. This person is fingerprinted, photographed, and put in a holding cell. A couple hours later, the officer returns with this person's belongings and an apology. The officer says, "I'm sorry, I saw you behaving that way, shouting and cursing and gesturing at the driver in front of you. And then I noticed the What Would Jesus Do license plate frame and the Sunday school bumper sticker and the chrome-plated Christian fish on the back of your car. Naturally, I assumed that you had stolen the car." Just a parable to remind us the power of faith has very little to do with what we say and everything to do with the transformed life that we live. That truth sits at the heart of Acts 9. Saul was certain that he knew the truth. He was certain he was right. He was so certain that he went after Christians like a hound dog after a rabbit. Legal papers in hand, fueled by tradition and anger and ego and power. Paul even stood by when Stephen was stoned, watching as the crowd killed him, holding their cloaks, smiling at their fury, congratulating them afterward. Then on the road to Damascus, everything was suddenly undone. Jesus appears, blinds Saul, shakes him to the core. And if you read the story, you'll notice that Jesus does not heal Saul directly. He sends him to Ananias. In the church community, Ananias. 14 years later, Saul, rebuilt, reshaped, renamed Paul, was finally ready to lead. His transformation required a church. That same story, the truth of that story, came to life in my classmate, Bob. Bob was in Mr. Fox's 6th grade class. I was in Mr. Gilbert's. Bob's mother, Barb, was well known. She was the town hairdresser, also the gossip of the town, and a known unkind person. She seldom came to church, but when she did, she was loud with complaint. Bob was a bully. Not enough to get expelled, just enough to make life miserable for me. I offered to help him with homework, mostly to keep from getting hit. We ended up walking home together one day, and we were talking. We then had snacks at my house that my mom had provided, and then we started opening books and getting into our homework. Turns out Bob had no friends. None. He was actually a pretty cool guy. One night, he stayed at our house. We were horsing around the way boys did, and Bob took a swing at my brother Tim, connected with my brother Tim. My mom said calmly but firmly, "Bob, that is unacceptable. We do not hit in our family. We care for you, but if you're going to be in our home, you will abide by our rules." Bob leaned into those words like he had never heard anything like them before. Later on, Bob spent the night a few times, and one of those nights happened to be a Saturday. Sunday morning in our house meant church, and without protest, Bob came with us to church. He sat through Sunday school with me and then worship, and then we went to lunch. The next week, he showed up at church on his own. He sat with us. And then the next week and the next week. 20 years later, I had moved away long before, but 20 years later, I ran into Bob at the A&W root beer stand. He'd gotten a job at the grocery store. He was managing the grocery store according to his name tag. His mom had died. The funeral had been at the church. He thanked me for my friendship. I thanked him for his. He told me a bit more of his story over hamburgers and French fries. Bob had been a twin. His sister Mariah was born first, beautiful and bright, and then Bob arrived. And his mother, their mother, bitter and angry, later told him that she had said to the nurse, "Throw him out with the afterbirth." She said that she hated all things male, including him. Mariah was the light of her mother's eyes, and Mariah became Bob's protector. When they were 9 years old, she drowned in the river. And at the funeral, Barb stood up and said, God had made a mistake. Should have taken Bob instead of Mariah. Said that publicly in front of her son at her daughter's funeral, to her son at her daughter's funeral. From then on, Bob's life was bare survival. His mother refused to feed him. He ate breakfast in the school program, and he got free lunches in the cafeteria. She refused to wash his clothes. She refused to let him call her mom. She made it clear that he was unwanted. When Bob walked into church with my family that first Sunday, something cracked open in him. He heard a word of love that he had never heard before, and he went back and back again. That church became his family. He ate potlucks there. When he was 17 and his mother threw him out for good, a church member took him in. Other members of the church helped him to find jobs. That congregation baptized him. They told him he was born anew, a child of God. They took responsibility for his faith development. They said words to him that we still say at baptism. You are incorporated into God's mighty acts of salvation and given new birth. And the congregation promised, we will surround you with a community of love and forgiveness that you may grow in trust of God. Bob has been part of that church for 44 years now. Those people did not think they were saving a life. They were just living their faith, being the church. But God used them. When his mother grew sick and she knew that she was going to pass, she softened. He discovered that she finally told him that she had once fallen for a man who took her. She had a crush on this man for a long time. And finally, he paid some attention to her, took her on a date, one dinner. She was naive and she was bowled over when he said, I think I love you. And then she found herself abandoned and pregnant. Her anger consumed her. Bob was able to say to his mother, Mom, I forgive you. She was able to say, Son, I'm sorry I let anger control me. I do love you. That moment between mother and son was only possible because that church had first given Bob a new life. This is what Acts 9 is all about. Saul was not healed by a voice from heaven. He was healed by the church at Damascus, by a Sunday school teacher named Ananias, by years of patient community by that church. That's the call for us. The church is not a club for the righteous. It's a place where Bobs are reborn, a place where Sauls are rebuilt, a place where even the most broken lives can be reshaped by love and patience and presence. Here's the question that lingers in these stories. Who are you in these stories? Are you Bob? Hungry for love, needing a place to belong? Are you Barb? Injured, angry, alone? Are you Saul? Certain and arrogant and in need of being undone? Are you a member of the church, living faithfully, sometimes unaware of the impact you make in other people's lives? Are you Ananias, reluctant but obedient and in touch with God, offering healing to someone that you are afraid of? The question is not, is God still working in the church? The question is, what is God doing in you? Thanks be to God. Amen.